The architectural history of Charleroi. A story of coal industry, struggle, and rebirth. Introduction. A city born from smoke and steel. When people think of beautiful European cities, Charleroi is not always the first name that comes to mind. It does not have medieval castles on every corner, nor grand royal palaces shining in gold. But Charleroi has something just as powerful, a story written in brick, iron, smoke, and survival. Charleroi is a city in southern Belgium, in the region of Wallonia. It is often called the Black Country because of its deep connection to coal and heavy industry. For centuries, its buildings grew not for kings or emperors, but for workers, miners, engineers, and families trying to build a life. The architecture of Charleroi tells a very human story. It is about hope during industrial growth, pain during decline, and creativity during rebirth. To understand the city, we must walk through time. From quiet farmland to roaring factories, from dark mines to modern cultural spaces. This is the architectural history of Charleroi. 1. Before the city, a quiet rural land before 1666. Before Charleroi existed, the land along the river Sambre was peaceful and rural. Small villages stood among fields, forests, and farms. Houses were simple and practical. Stone walls, wooden roofs, small windows, built mainly by hand. There were no grand streets or monuments. Buildings were made to survive cold winters and long working days. Architecture at this time was not about beauty. It was about function. The region already had iron and coal underground, but people had not yet learned how powerful these resources would become. Everything changed in the 17th century. 2. The birth of Charleroi, 1666. Charleroi was officially founded in 1666. At that time, the area was under Spanish control. The Spanish king decided to build a fortress city to defend the region against French attacks. This is where architecture becomes political. The fortress design. Charleroi was designed as a star-shaped fortified town, a popular military design in Europe at the time. Its features included thick stone walls, bastions shaped like arrows, defensive gates, moats, and ramparts. The city was planned carefully from the start, not growing naturally, but designed on paper before being built. This made Charleroi very different from older medieval cities. The fortress defined the city's shape for nearly 2 centuries. Architecture here served one purpose: protection. 3. French influence and urban planning, late 1600s, 1700s. Soon after its founding, Charleroi changed hands several times between Spain, France, and Austria. When the French took control, the famous military engineer, Vauban, improved the fortress. Under French influence, streets became more organized. Military buildings became more refined. Stone construction improved in quality. Even early civilian houses followed military logic. Straight lines, solid walls, simple geometry. This period gave Charleroi its first sense of urban identity. But it was still small, still controlled, still defensive. The real transformation had not yet begun. For the Industrial Revolution, a city explodes 1800s. The 19th century changed Charleroi forever. Coal was discovered in massive quantities beneath the ground. Suddenly, this quiet fortress town became one of Europe's industrial hearts. This is the most important chapter in Charleroi architectural history. Rise of industry. Factories rose quickly. Steel plants, glass factories, iron workshops, coal mines. Architecture exploded outward beyond the old fortress walls. The walls themselves were eventually destroyed, making space for growth. Charleroi stopped being a military town and became an industrial machine. 5. Industrial architecture, beauty and function. Industrial buildings defined the city's appearance. These structures were not decorative, but today, many people see a raw beauty in them. Common features included red brick walls, tall chimneys, large iron frames, wide factory windows, massive halls. Everything was built fast and strong. Iron and steel became architectural materials, not just tools. This was modern architecture before modernism even had a name. 6. workers' housing, architecture for the masses. With thousands of workers arriving, housing became urgent. This led to the creation of workers' neighborhoods, known as sites of arrières. These areas had small brick row houses, identical designs, tiny gardens, narrow streets. The houses were modest, but revolutionary for their time. For the first time in history, architecture was being designed for ordinary families, miners, factory workers. This was not luxury architecture. It was social architecture. Charleroi became a city built by and for workers. 7. Glass architecture and innovation. Charleroi became world famous for its glass industry. Glass factories influenced architecture deeply. Large windows became common because factories needed light. Glass was cheap and available. Technology improved. This changed the look of buildings. Taller windows, brighter interiors, new structural ideas. Charleroi helped push Europe toward modern industrial design. 8. Art Nouveau, a brief moment of elegance, 1890 to 1914. While factories dominated the city, a new artistic movement arrived. Art Nouveau. This style celebrated curved lines, floral designs, decorative iron, artistic windows. In Charleroi, Art Nouveau appeared mostly in middle-class houses, shops, cafes, office buildings. Unlike Brussels, where Art Nouveau flourished richly, Charleroi version was more restrained. Still, it added emotion and beauty to an otherwise hard industrial city. It showed that even in smoke and coal, people still wanted art. 9. Between the wars, modern ideas rise, 1918 to 1939. After World War I, architecture changed again. People wanted progress, efficiency, and hope. This led to early modern architecture. Clean lines, flat roofs, less decoration, concrete structures. Public buildings began reflecting new values. Schools, hospitals, town facilities. Architecture now stood for modern life, not tradition. Charleroi was stepping into the future. 10. Art Deco influence. Art Deco became popular during the 1920s and 1930s. In Charleroi, it appeared in cinemas, apartment buildings, administrative offices. Art Deco used strong geometric shapes, vertical lines, stylized decoration. It felt confident and optimistic, a contrast to the harsh industrial environment. Even today, some of these buildings remain proud reminders of that era. 11. Post-war reconstruction, 1945-1960s. World War II damaged parts of the city. After the war, speed mattered more than beauty. Reconstruction architecture focused on concrete, efficiency, large housing blocks. This era created many apartment towers, government buildings, public housing estates. These buildings were often criticized later for being cold or repetitive, but at the time, they represented hope and stability. People needed homes. Architecture answered quickly. 12. The industrial collapse, 1970s, 1980s. Then came the hardest chapter. Coal mines closed. Factories shut down. Jobs disappeared. Charleroi industrial architecture suddenly became empty, rusting, abandoned. Entire neighborhoods lost purpose. The city gained a reputation as gray, poor, forgotten. Many buildings fell into decay. But even in ruins, these structures told powerful stories. They became monuments of labor, memory, and identity. 13. Ruins that became symbols. Old factories and mine towers, called headframes, remained standing instead of demolishing everything. People began to see value in them. These industrial ruins became symbols of working-class pride, history, identity. Architecture was no longer just about function. It became memory carved in steel. 14. The turn toward regeneration, 1990s, 2000s. Slowly, Charleroi began to change direction. Instead of erasing the past, the city started reusing it. This idea is called adaptive reuse. Old buildings were transformed into museums, art centers, universities, cultural spaces. Industrial architecture became cultural architecture. This marked a new chapter. 15. Contemporary architecture, a new voice. Modern Charleroi does not try to hide its scars. Instead, new architecture often contrasts with the old. Modern buildings feature glass facades, clean geometry, minimalism, open public spaces. Examples include redesigned metro stations, cultural centers, public plazas. The city embraces contrast, steel next to glass, ruined beside modern design. This tension gives Charleroi its character. 16. Street art and urban expression. Architecture in Charleroi is not only buildings. Street art plays a huge role. Murals cover old factory walls, empty buildings, underpasses. This turns forgotten spaces into living galleries. The city itself becomes a canvas. Young artists now shape Charleroi visual identity as much as architects. 17. The Metro, Brutalism Underground. Charleroi's metro system is famous and sometimes strange. Many stations show brutalist architecture, raw concrete, strong geometric forms, minimal decoration. Some stations were never completed, giving them an almost surreal atmosphere. Yet this metro reflects an era when the city still believed strongly in growth. It is architecture frozen in time. 18. Architecture as identity. Unlike tourist cities built for beauty, Charleroi's architecture is honest. It shows hard work, mistakes, dreams, collapse, reinvention. Every brick tells a story of real people. That is its power. 19. A city learning to love itself again. Today, Charleroi is changing its image, not by pretending to be something else, but by understanding its own story. New generations see value in industrial heritage, raw urban landscapes, authentic architecture. What was once called ugly is now called real. 20. Conclusion. The architecture of survival. The architectural history of Charleroi is not about kings or cathedrals. It is about workers waking before sunrise, families living near factories, cities rising too fast, cities falling too hard, and cities refusing to disappear. From fortress walls to factory halls, from soot-covered bricks to modern glass spaces, Charleroi's architecture is the architecture of survival. It reminds us that cities are not perfect. They are human, and sometimes the most powerful beauty is found not in perfection, but in endurance.